it's Rachel. Today on Crack Your Bible, we are finally done with Genesis 11, but for those of you who haven't been with us this entire time, we go chapter by chapter, and at the end of the chapter, we do have an overview, so you can just kind of get a summary to catch up. And before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe with the bell with the parentheses to make sure you get notified of a new Crack Your Bible video, because Satan and YouTube don't want you to know the gospel, so they make you jump through 10,000 hoops to get a notification. So hit subscribe with the bell with the parentheses, and let's get started. Now, Genesis 11. We are finally done with it, but this chapter, when you look at it, you're just like, wow, this is kind of just lots of stuff jumbled together. It's not necessarily one cohesive story when you look at it, because you have the story about this city named Babel, and then you have a genealogy, and then you have an introduction of this guy named Abraham, and you're like, okay, how does all of this fit together? But don't even get it twisted, because you have to understand Abraham's backstory, where he came from, what his family was like, to understand the rest of the book of Genesis, because Abraham and his descendants, that is going to carry us out of the book of Genesis into the second book, which is Exodus. And his family is crazy, but they're so human. They're just like you and me. They deal with the same kind of stuff. They have the same kind of fears. And once you understand their backstory, you're kind of like, okay, now I kind of understand why you act the way that you do. Now, in Genesis 11, we start out with the Tower of Babel. Now, Noah's Ark has already happened. The flood has already happened. They've already gotten off the ark. People are repopulating the earth, and they are all concentrated in this one area in modern-day Iraq. And people, as they do, God gives them grace. They fall back, and they're going to do their own thing. Except these people ramp it up times a billion. It's not just like, oh, I messed up. Oh, I've fallen into sin instead of habitual sin. No, it's just kind of like, forget you, God. We're going to do our own thing. And you know what? You're not in charge of us anymore. So you have all of the people, you know, their ancestors knew God. They have no excuse. Like, they are aware of God. They're very aware of God, because they are ready to go to war with God, because they want to elevate themselves to be like God. And it's just like, really? Y'all know the history. Like, why are you guys doing this again? Like, why you gotta bite the hand that feeds you? Ungrateful. But instead of going out and multiplying, being fruitful and multiplying, filling the whole earth, making it teem with life, now everybody just like stays put. We're gonna stay put and do our own thing and forget God. So they build this tower called the Tower of Babel, because they're gonna go to war with God. They're gonna be like God. They don't want God's name. They don't want to be known as the children of God. They're not. But they want to have their talents recognized, like, oh, I'm all about me. Like, I'm not under your banner. I'm under myself. Like, I'm going to make a name for myself. So we're going to build this tower and go fight with God. And God's just like, no, like, let me come down there and see what y'all are doing. This ain't nothing. So God scatters them. And how does he do that? He confuses their language, so that they can't all work together to fight against God. Like, y'all think you're gonna come against me? Like, nope, you're done. Now y'all have to spread out, because you'll start collecting with people who are like you. And that's when people start to disperse and spread out over the face of the earth, because they go with people who are like them, who can speak the same language. Now, these people, they still have their histories. They still have their memories. It's not like God, like Men in Black, like hit the little thingy and erase their memory. They still have these memories, and that's why you'll see all over the world the same stories, the same flood story. You'll see the same like Nephilim, or the Watchers, or fallen angels coming down and mating with humans. You see this everywhere. You see the same stories, and people will be like, oh, see, the Bible's ripped them off. No. If these things are true, then everybody would have known this story, and they will go and take that story with them. And of course, like a game of telephone, things are going to get mixed up. And of course, when you have people who are upset with God, they're angry at God, they're not going to tell the truth. So they're going to twist it and change the story a bit. But the real story, the truth, there's still a kernel of truth in those stories. And we see that with all of the flood myths and the gods coming down and all sorts of stuff. It's the same stories. They've just changed the names because God scattered them in their language. But same with people that are like, oh, Noah's Ark is ripped off from Mesopotamia. No, it's not. It's the same story. Like, and if it happened, you would expect that there would be other people also telling this story. Everybody needs Jesus. So everybody is still upset with God. They've turned their backs on God. They've been scattered. And then all of a sudden we get this genealogy of a man named Shem. Now, Shem was one of Noah's sons, and he is going to be the one who the Messiah, Jesus, comes through. And his line is just like everybody else. Just because your parent walked with God does not mean that your kids, your grandkids, or anybody else down the line is going to have a relationship with God. Like, your relationship is completely dependent on your choices. Like, you have to choose to have a relationship with God. It's not just like through osmosis or, oh, my mom was this or my dad was this. That stuff doesn't matter. Like, your relationship is a personal relationship with God. So we see that Shem, even though he had a relationship with God, Noah had a relationship with God, his descendants did not. Shem's line ends with this guy named Terah, and it's listed so-and-so was this age, they had a kid at this age, and then they died at this age, and it just goes on and on and on until we reach this guy named Terah. He is the father of Abraham. You've heard of Abraham from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's one of the main patriarchs of the Bible. But Terah was a pagan. He didn't care about what Shem believed, what Noah believed. No, the book of Joshua tells us like he's doing his own thing. Jewish philosophers and historians say that he made idols, and they have some like crazy other stories that not biblical, but whatever. So he's doing his own thing. He's living in Ur, and he has 3 sons named Haran, Nahor, and then his youngest son is Abram. And yes, it's Abram first, and then it will be changed later on to Abraham. So he has these 3 sons. His son Haran dies while they're living in Ur. So now Terah is going to have to raise his grandkids, which are Milcah, Iscah, and Lot. And they are all kind of about the same age as Abram, because Abram is the youngest. And a lot of people will say Iscah is Sarai or Sarah, and even though the Bible doesn't explicitly state that, we're going to run with it because it seems like it's plausible. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, it kind of makes sense when you will see in the next few chapters how Sarai and Sarah acts, because honestly, she lost her parents. Her dad's dead. Who knows where her mom is? So you can kind of see that Sarai lashes out in anger, and she's just kind of a mess. Like, she doesn't want to feel abandoned, and that is going to be something that we see throughout the rest of the book of Genesis, is her kind of operating out of fear. But when you understand she's lost her family, and she's raised by her grandpa, and then they're having to move, and all this other stuff, like, yeah, you can understand that while her behavior is not always warranted, you can kind of see where it's coming from. She has a history. We all have a history. We all have a past. We all have baggage. It is what it is. But the chapter ends with Terah moving all of his family over to Haran. He has a son named Haran. They move to Haran. And then Terah dies. And then God tells Abram, yo, pack up your family. It's about time to go. And they are going to leave the city of Haran. And that's basically where Genesis 11 ends. And once you understand that this is the city that Abraham came out of, I always interchange them, and this is his past, and this is his family, you kind of understand that he is trusting in God, but he does not have a foundation like, oh, this is how I should do these things, or, this is how I should trust in God. He's really kind of out there in the dark, and he's totally dependent on God. So while he's totally human and you're just like, why are you making these stupid mistakes? Once you understand that he's really the only one that believes in God and his family, you understand that, he doesn't have anybody else to guide him. He's completely trusting in God. And as a human, he will make mistakes, as we all do. So I would love it if you would make sure to put on the full armor of God, because every day we have to stand strong against the schemes of the devil, and we can't do that unless we know our rights and responsibilities as Christians and we understand the gospel, so that we know the promises that God has told us. So make sure you check out a playlist up here. Check out another playlist over here. I have over 130 videos explaining the gospel in multiple playlists. So check those out while you wait. We are going to be talking about dating and relationships, specifically for single people, this week as a continuation from last week. And I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and share, and make sure you know that Jesus loves you. I will see you later. Bye.